Blog Talk Radio.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your
Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Pink Atheist. I'm your host, Rachel Johnson, and with me today is my co-host, Jimmy Williamson. Jimmy?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. We do still have Phil. Phil's running a few minutes late to get into the show, so he'll be with us here in a few minutes. And we also have Ed Cobbs is out for the week. And having said that, Rachel has volunteered to do our week on Mars. So, Rachel, would you handle that?
Absolutely. What I have is today's Martian weather report as of November 2nd. The high temperature was 25 degrees Fahrenheit, and the low was negative 96 degrees, I do believe. Atmospheric pressure was 8.8 millibars, wind from the east at 4.5 miles per hour. Curiosity continues to take soil and rock samples for analysis at the Rocknest site. Scientists and engineers at JPL state Curiosity will spend another week at Rocknest site. The Mars Hand Lens Imager takes photos of two rocks called Burwash and E.T. Bed. These two rocks have been imaged for later analysis. Sample analysis at Mars SAM instrument, located inside Curiosity along with Kemin, completed its first analysis of Martian atmosphere. Analysis from SAM detects small trace amounts of nitrogen and oxygen. No methane yet, however, it is still early in the mission. And methane is one of those important things that we're looking for because it's important for life. The good news is two different argon isotopes were detected. These findings support past data that the Martian atmosphere indeed dissipated into space over time. Chemical and mineralogy instrument used for the first time, X-ray diffraction, used to tell what minerals are present and the abundance of these minerals. Soil samples tell us of past and present climatic conditions on Mars, where photos of rounded rocks from 2 weeks ago tell us about the past on Mars. X-ray diffraction technology spins off into the mining industry as well as the Food and Drug Administration. So what Ed was saying there is that basically because this technology was developed at NASA, we now have it for the food and drug industry as well. Martian soils are similar to weathered basaltic soils of volcanic origin in Hawaii, which tells that it must have had a volcanic history. The basaltic material contains amounts of feldspar, pyroxene, and olivine. Basalt, a hard, dark volcanic rock composed chiefly of plagioclase, pyroxene, and olivine, and often having a glassy appearance. And we do have the website for that information, and we'll get that up after the show. So that is our Mars report for the week.
Great. And first we're going to go into an interview that we're going to do with David Diosi. David, are you there?
I sure am.
Hi, David.
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Glad to have you on. I understand that you're the president of the Humanist Association?
That's right, the American Humanist Association.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what you guys do?
Well, the AHA has been around since 1941. It's the oldest and largest humanist organization in America, and we advocate for the rights of humanists and other non-theists. We have a number of different departments. We have a legal department, an education department. We do a lot of public advocacy, speaking out on issues of importance to humanists. And, there's not much in the secular movement that we don't have our hands in at some level. We are involved in coalition work with the Secular Coalition for America. We're now lobbying up on Capitol Hill on behalf of atheists and humanists, and really trying to promote the idea of identity-oriented activism for the secular community, the secular demographic.
Okay. And I know that you're also the author of the book, Non-Believer Nation.
That's right. Just came out this summer.
I did have a chance to read a little bit of the book last night. You were actually saying that the stance on evolution and dogmatic nature of politics is actually higher than it used to be 100 years ago when Roosevelt and Taft ran for office.
Well, it certainly seems that way if you look at the level of religiosity in presidential politics today and compare it to even 100 years ago. We tend to think that society progresses as time moves forward. But if you really look at what's happened to America, especially in the last 30 years or so since the rise of the religious right, I think you'd have to say any objective assessment would conclude that we've really taken a few steps backwards.
Yeah, I would concur with that completely. And one of the things that you...
Yeah, just take a look at the last presidential season with Rick Perry launching his campaign by having a prayer rally that filled a football stadium. We just kind of take that with a grain of salt, like, oh, well, there goes another religious right politician. But we should bear in mind that 20 or 30 years ago, that would have been seen as absolutely outlandish, even in the Republican Party. Even in the GOP, that would have been political suicide to launch a presidential campaign by having a prayer rally to Jesus filling a football stadium. So I think, it's things like that should really open our eyes to what's happening in America, that we really are moving in the wrong direction in our politics and in our public policy.
Yeah,
you also say that the modern secular movement is gaining a little traction. Do you see this as being possibly a big fight in the end?
Well, I do, and to really put it in context, we should bear in mind that, yes, the religious right as we know it, we usually date it back to about 1979, 1980, when Jerry Falwell came on the scene with the moral majority. And when we think about the opposition to the religious right, the main opponents to the religious right, for the last 30 years, it has not been the secular movement as we know it today. It has been other sectors, and you have to conclude when you look at what's happened with the religious right, it's been very much a successful movement, much to our chagrin. But the opposition to the religious right for the last 30 years has essentially failed. You have to look at it objectively and say, whatever the opposition has been to the religious right for the last 30 years, it has failed. And we can get into that a little bit, just why it's failed and who these opponents were. But what's really hopeful is that the modern secular movement, which is really only a few years old, represents a new kind of opposition to the religious right that the religious right has never had to deal with before. And I would argue, and I do in Non-Believer Nation, that this modern secular movement represents real hope. If there's any hope of getting America's public policy and public dialogue back on track, I think the modern secular movement really represents that hope.
And do you think we're going at that more from a legal angle now, more so than in the past?
In some ways, yes. We do have a new legal strategy now that is much different than the strategy we've used in the past. We're emphasizing traditional discrimination arguments as opposed to church-state arguments, although, of course, the church-state arguments are still there. Usually they're based on the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, and that's all valid. It's great when it works, but the federal courts in recent years have not been all that friendly to First Amendment and Establishment Clause arguments. But at the AHA, what we're developing and what we're actually implementing is an identity-oriented strategy that sets aside the Establishment Clause and instead approaches these issues from a discrimination standpoint, something completely new, completely different. And it stands a real chance of being successful. If nothing else, it raises the question of why Americans feel that it's all right to discriminate against non-believers. And I think if we get that discussion going, it's a discussion that can only work to our benefit, because if you have a rational discussion about it, there's really no good reason for discriminating against non-believers. You know, every other minority group in the country, if you think about it, asserts its rights legally through the equal protection discrimination avenue, right? I mean, if you look at racial discrimination with Brown versus Board of Education, women, sex discrimination, just about any, even same-sex orientation. You know, the Goodridge same-sex marriage case, which broke new ground for same-sex marriage. That's all equal protection litigation. For some reason, non-believers have never asserted their rights through equal protection. Instead, we've opted for the Establishment Clause. And I think we should ask ourselves, you know, why aren't we arguing discrimination? Why can't we validate ourselves as a demographic category and say, you know what, we're a class of people who should not be discriminated against? And it's a new argument, and I think it's an approach that is bound to work.
Absolutely.
Good.
I know one of the things that you said in your book was that one side of the politic, the religious right, the left is actually feeding off of that, and it's actually making the problem exacerbated, because the more extreme one side gets, the more it pushes the other side to be extreme as well.
Well, somewhat. One thing I point out, and this is getting back to the traditional opposition to the religious right, the opposition that I would argue has failed, and it very much involves liberal and moderate politicians who, rather than challenging the religious right, have kind of played their game with them instead. And, you know, just as an example, you know, take a look at politicians like Ted Kennedy and Bill Clinton, right? And they really represent an entire category of politicians, the opponents to the religious right? What do? Do they question the underlying theology of the religious right? Not really. They really don't. In fact, they try very hard to associate themselves with religion as well. Ted Kennedy gave a speech down at Liberty Baptist College a few years after Jerry Falwell first came on the scene, and he went down to Liberty and he gave the speech on religion and politics, and he said, you know, I'm an American and I'm a Catholic. I love my country and I treasure my faith. You know, so this is the opposition to the religious right, a liberal politician getting up. And what's he saying, essentially? He's saying, you know, we liberals can be religious too. You know, the religious right doesn't have a monopoly on religion. And, you know, that's all well and good. If Kennedy was religious, fine. You know, and if Bill Clinton's religious and other liberal politicians are religious, that's fine. But if that is the entirety of the opposition to the religious right, politicians basically saying, well, you know, you're not going to out-religion us, you know, we're religious too, that really alienates an entire demographic, the secular demographic. You know, it has everyone rushing to religion, and if you're not embracing religion, you're very much an outsider on the spectrum of American politics. And that's what's happened in America. The entire debate has taken place on a playing field that assumes everyone is religious. And that very much worked against the secular demographic, and it was, quite frankly, playing right into the hands of the religious right, because that's the playing field they want to play on, where there's an assumption at the start of the game that everyone's religious, and if you're not, well, boy, you know, you must be a real marginal character. You must be a fringe character if you're an open atheist. You know, It's not the kind of environment that is healthy for rational public policy.
It's very
Right.
true. One of our guests in the chat room has a question. He says, how does David feel about ridiculing and mocking the religious right?
Well, I think any movement is going to have a variation of approaches. I don't think any movement has ever moved forward with all the players agreeing on just what the pitch should be and what the argument should be. I think there's a time and place for poking fun at religion and calling out real absurdities. There's certainly a place for it. Whether the movement as a whole should emphasize that, I'm not so sure. But I don't think we should be critical of one another within the movement just because some people use tactics that we personally don't agree with. Look at the civil rights movement, right? You had Martin Luther King, you had Malcolm X, you're going back, you had W.E.B. Du Bois, and you also had Booker T. Washington. There were debates within the movement as to how accommodationist to be and how adversarial to be. And I think there should be debates like that within the secular movement, and I'm sure there will always be a variation of approaches. And I'm not going to sit on my high horse and say one approach is right and another's not right. I think when somebody really steps out of line and says something, truly mean-spirited and whatnot, we should maybe call that out. But for the most part, I think we should be of the mindset and accept the fact that there are going to be different ways of approaching the engagement of the religious right. Some are going to be a little more respectful than others, and we should all do what fits our own comfort zone.
And now, as far as the atheists and the secularists and the agnostics go, I've heard a lot of people say that we should not be as vocal about religion and we should just let it die out slowly. How do you feel about something like that?
Well, I think there's a place for debating religious truth, and I think it's a debate that's healthy for us because, quite frankly, most non-believers have a pretty realistic view of things. Humanists, for example, are open to the idea of debating theological questions, and they're always willing to revise their beliefs and their opinions if shown evidence. That's a very reasonable approach to things. So I'm all for engaging in debate and being critical and having these discussions when the place is proper for it. But I don't know if we really make much progress if we just constantly bash and ridicule religion, though. I think there's a more important debate about why we as a demographic category are discriminated against and why Americans are so unaccepting and untrusting of atheists and agnostics and humanists. That's the more important immediate issue as far as I'm concerned. I'm not going to be trying to convert everyone to disbelief. I think that's, quite frankly, a little distasteful if you're just walking around all the time calling people stupid for believing. I just don't think that's the thing to do. What we should be doing mainly as a movement is questioning why there's discrimination against us. And if we really focus on that issue, it's something that works very much in our favor. We should not be discriminated against. If you look at various criteria, it all works in our favor. Over 90% of the National Academy of Sciences accepts atheist or agnostic views on religion. If you look at social problems, they stack up much stronger. They correlate much stronger with religious societies than they do with secular societies. So there's no reason for us to be discriminated against, and that's what I think we should focus on rather than trying to convince believers that somehow they should stop believing or that somehow their theology is senseless. I think that's just not going to get very far, number one, and if anything, it's going to be more likely to make us enemies.
Yeah, counterproductive. Also, the Secular Coalition work that you do, what is your caliber with them?
Right now, I'm vice president of the Secular Coalition, and I've been involved in the Secular Coalition almost since the beginning. It was formed in late 2002, and I began working with the Secular Coalition in 2003, first on their advisory committee, and then later as a board member and an officer.
All right, excellent. And did y'all really go through the phone book and try to just get the A's first?
Get the A's first?
Alabama and Arizona were the number one
I get you.
states involved.
You know, that's
and how far have we gotten since then?
Yeah, it's pure coincidence that the first two were A's. Notice we skipped Alaska. Maybe we thought with Sarah Palin up there it was too far gone. I don't know, but no.
You got Alabama though. That's impressive that you pulled Alabama, one of the first ones.
There's some great secular activists down in Alabama, I'll tell you. I was just down there a month or so ago for the Alabama Free Thought Convention, and I'll tell you, you go deep into the heart of the Bible Belt, and you'll find some real committed secular activists, and they have some down there in Alabama. So, but there's a number of state groups now. I'm not sure exactly what the number is up to because it's changing week to week, but the goal is to have 50 by the year 2020, so I think we'll get there easily. There's a lot of interest in having local secular coalitions. The grassroots aspect of the secular movement is very alive. Yeah.
And that was a really good convention that we had in Alabama, and that was from the Secular Coalition of Alabama, which, of course, is the state group that you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. We enjoyed it. It was real good.
Yeah, I had a good time down there.
And Phil's been on the line the whole time. I actually called in right after we started the interview. Phil, are you there?
I am. How you guys doing?
We're doing well.
How are you doing?
I was thinking of questions, but David was talking so eloquently that I really had nothing to add.
Well, you're laying it on a little thick there, Phil, but...
David, we did meet very briefly. You were kind enough to come to the SSA Summer Convention, and full disclaimer, I'm on the board, and you gave a delightful talk there about your book and your views on the movement, and I agree with the vast majority, particularly the idea that, of a multi-pronged attach. There are groups that provide an alternative to religion. There are groups that argue. I think you are right. We have a weakness in arguing for our rights, which we haven't done well enough. But I also think there's a place to fight religion, and that's not necessarily the AHA thing, and I get that. And all these different groups come together when it's appropriate and beneficial, like the Reason Rally. And
right.
they can disagree. And I met a very good friend of mine, Chris Stedman, who works with the Boston Humanists, and he is very much into working with religion. And he has a different path than I do, but I love the work that he's doing, and I'm glad he's there on my team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think we need to realize that there's not one way to be a secular activist, that in fact, you should find whatever niche feels most comfortable to you, and that might even change from time to time, but there's no reason to look at somebody who's being accommodating to religion and say, that's a problem that this person is doing this. We need to be more adversarial. There's plenty of room on the spectrum for different approaches, and if all of these approaches working together help raise the profile of the movement and help raise awareness of the fact that there's a huge secular demographic out there that's agitating and that's fighting for its rights and standing up for itself, that's all going to move things in the right direction.
Well, and I see it like the churches. Different churches in America have wildly different views. What one needs to do to get to heaven, how one gets to heaven, what's the right way to butter your toast, and when do you get baptized, at birth or when you're old enough to understand what it means. And they can argue like crazy, but when there's something that fights them or that they want to join together on, they line up and they say, we're all Christians and we're all fighting this fight. And we maybe need to figure out exactly what that overriding word is. Maybe it's secularists, because then you can bring in some of the very lovely and moderate religions. But, we can have different approaches, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think we do spend too much time worrying about the semantics, too. I see people arguing over whether, the word atheist or humanist is the better word and whether we should use one or not the other, or whether secular might be better. I think, we should spend less time analyzing semantics and more time just, moving forward with the words we think are comfortable. There are atheist groups, there are humanist groups, there are groups that use other words like freethinker and whatnot. I think if we're all agitating and if we're all doing our thing, the movement will take on a life of its own without our deciding what the right semantics are.
Absolutely. So what are your big plans now for the future? You've got more conventions coming up. You got a second book?
Oh, I'm not even thinking about a second book right now because I'm pretty busy with the one book I have. But I've got some more traveling to do. There's always things going on with the AHA. We've got some new campaigns that are going to be announced publicly shortly after the election. We've got some really exciting things going on politically and in terms of mass communication. And I hate to be a tease, but I'm going to hold my cards on the details of those things because we're doing the announcements after the election. But it's going to be exciting stuff for year-end at the American Humanist Association, that's for sure. And then we've also got this pledge lawsuit going on where I'm lead counsel on that. We've got this case going on in Massachusetts where we are challenging the Pledge of Allegiance on equal protection grounds, specifically telling the court that we are not looking at the Establishment Clause here, that we really want the rights of atheist humanist children to be considered from the standpoint of equal protection. And I'll tell you, it's a very exciting case. We found out about a week ago that we are getting direct appellate review from the state Supreme Court on the case. And we're very excited about it because the case is extremely strong. We've got a real strong brief that we're putting together on it that we're optimistic about.
Well, I like that. I'm also wondering, how far afield can that fairness argument go? I went to vote early last week, and in the Champaign County Clerk's office is a sign that says, God bless America. And I talked to the county clerk about it, and he says that there's nothing that says it's unconstitutional. And I said, I'm not here to argue the law. I'm just saying it's not fair. It makes one group feel more welcome than another one. And I proposed an experiment that he would change the sign for one day, and instead of it saying God bless America, it would say Allah bless America. And he did not think that was a very good idea.
I'm not surprised. Yeah,
my point was that the Christians wouldn't stand for it.
No, absolutely. There's a term that we've come up with called theistic supremacy. That there's this sense in America that theism is supreme. That, if you're not a theist, that, you're a second-class citizen. All of this governmental religiosity, or almost all of it, is modern in nature. The National Day of Prayer was made an annual event in the 1950s, and then it was made a more high-profile event and given a specific date only in the 1980s. Under God, as I'm sure you know, was put into the Pledge of Allegiance only in 1954. In God We Trust was made the national motto. 2 years later. All of this governmental religiosity that we see on such a regular basis and hear about on such a regular basis is modern in its nature. I mean, you could go back in American history and cherry-pick very carefully examples of governmental religiosity beyond that, but the pervasive governmental religiosity that we have to deal with all the time is all modern. And most Americans just don't realize that. They think it's all part of this long tradition going back to the Founding Fathers, when in fact that's not the case at all. It's anyone who considers the issue objectively knows that the Founding Fathers very much wanted to distance American government from traditional religion, and it's very unfortunate that the message has gotten lost over the years.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There's two things that I noticed with people in history, and I wish I paid more attention to it in high school. I still feel like I'm trying to catch up with things I should know. But you mentioned previously this overriding arc that we just keep getting better and better as a country, and that's not always the case. And the second one is that some things have always been the same, and we've always been a Christian nation. And I guess I understand that for a 15 or an 18 or a 20-year-old, but some of these people who are 40 and 50, it's clearly willful ignorance that they don't understand the position of the Founding Fathers and the secularization of our country and its government. And you only have to look back to John F. Kennedy in the 1967, where he had to fall over himself as a Catholic to get consideration from the mass of the population.
Right, and he was able to do it by really hammering home on the notion of church-state separation. Back in his day, in the early 60s, he could only be considered a serious presidential candidate by assuring the nation that he believed in the absolute separation of church and state, and he used the word absolute. So yeah. It's really ironic now that church-state separation has become a controversial notion to many people in this country. There's many on the religious right who want to argue that the idea of church-state separation is a liberal myth, that it's really not something that's part of this country's heritage. And, history is just getting distorted more and more, and there's this sense that, if they repeat it enough, people will believe it. And unfortunately, that's kind of true.
Well, and of course, there's the idea, I think was proposed by Goebbels, that if you're going to lie, make it a big lie.
Yeah. And
say it enough times, and people would think to themselves, well, he obviously wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. It's so crazy. It has to be true. Could we benefit from that strategy? Is there any way we can?
Well, I think as a humanist, I certainly don't believe that we need to lie and repeat lies frequently in order to sell our message. I think our message is one of truth. I mean, humanists don't stand up and claim to have access to absolute truth, the way that traditional religions do. But the general notion of truth and reason and facts, critical thinking, are all consistent with humanism, and that's something I'd rather hammer home that message than be kind of diabolical and come up with bizarre lies and repeat them loudly and proudly and hope that people believe them. We don't need to do that because we do have the facts on our side.
Right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, Jimmy and Rachel, what do you guys got? You're quiet now.
Yeah. Handling a few things at once.
I mean, it is a good conversation. It's nice to hear both sides of it, actually. And, I know that the political arena has changed even since I've been growing up. So it's interesting to look at it from the perspective of discrimination. When you think about it, atheists are one of the most discriminated groups, second to homosexuals at this point. So it's interesting how we're treated and how we're left out of politics and in a lot of the arenas where we shouldn't be treated as bad as we are. So.
Yeah, and some surveys have us ranked lower than gays and lesbians in terms of distrust. We're more distrusted than recent immigrants, more distrusted than Muslims, and more distrusted than gays and lesbians. And I'm not suggesting that any of those groups should be distrusted, but it's just, when you think of Americans having prejudicial views, atheists actually rank below all those other groups in terms of the level of distrust. So it certainly is a discrimination issue. I think a lot of people look at the atheist and humanist demographic and they think, well, these people are college professors. Most of them have degrees, college degrees. They're fairly affluent. So, why should they be claiming discrimination? Why should they be claiming that they're an oppressed minority? And this is the delicate argument that we need to make. I think it's very important it's a consciousness-raising mission that we're on here. It's true that as a demographic, we are, we're not claiming that we're being thrown into poverty over our religious beliefs or that we're, losing our jobs or getting kicked out of apartments because of our religious beliefs. It's not that kind of oppression. In fact, perhaps it's not even oppression at all. But, there is still discrimination beyond the notion of being oppressed. To be disliked and to be mistreated, okay, that maybe that's the better word. We're not an oppressed minority, but we are very much a mistreated minority. We're contributing to society. We pay taxes. We do all the things that good citizens do. We've got Pat Tillman, who died for his country as an atheist, and we've got many other foxhole atheists who are fighting for this country. Well, there's no reason we should be mistreated. Yet, when we send our kids to school every day, the schools are conducting a daily exercise where the classroom stands up and declares that this is one country that is under God. That very much marginalizes our demographic category, and it very much suggests that we're second-class citizens. And this is the discrimination argument. We're not an oppressed minority, but we're very much a mistreated minority.
Yeah.
Very true.
So.
Does anybody have any other questions for David?
No, I think we're just covered it.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you. Thanks for having me on.
Wonderful having you on as well. You're a wonderful speaker, actually, and I'm really enjoying your book. So we'd love to have you back on some other time.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the book, and just get in touch with me anytime. You guys take care.
Well, you take care,
too.
David. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
He is a great speaker, and we did enjoy having him here in Alabama. It's nice to have good speakers come here. We don't get enough, I don't think.
Well, being as how it is in the Bible Belt, that makes it a little harder to get those good speakers down there, but it is great that he came down, and I can imagine it was wonderful hearing him. So, and I know we have our next guest waiting on the line, John Webster, if you want to bring him on, Jimmy.
Yeah, he's already on.
Okay.
John, how are you doing?
To the show.
Can you hear me all?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
Yes.
First of all, thank you all for letting me come on the show today and promote two books. First book is called Nothing Sacred, an Atheist Quote of the Calendar, and the second one is called Blasphemy, Atheist Quotes and Essays by an Apostate. And Nothing Sacred, an Atheist Quote of the Calendar, I quoted other famous or famous atheists and their quotes, and also included some of mine in there as well. And in Blasphemy, Atheist Quotes and Essays by an Apostate, it was pretty much all me. And also want to thank you for letting me promote my atheist website, The Thinker, on Facebook, and as well as my atheist dating page. I guess one of the things I wanted to start out by saying, first of all, with reference to nothing sacred in the atheist part of the calendar is my dedication. My dedication actually is dedicated to Pat Tillman. I'll go ahead and read for you a little bit of that if you don't care. In memory of.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. In memory of Corporal Pat Tillman, an atheist who left his professional American football career and enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2002 in the aftermath of September 11, 2001 attack. He joined the Army Rangers and served several tours in combat before he died in the mountains of Afghanistan. He was awarded the Silver Star and 10 other military honors. And this next quote just shows you the prejudice of some people who are in our political sphere who don't really know that much about atheists, and like I said, they discriminate against atheists. This is a quote by George H.W. Bush when he was President of the United States. He said that, "I don't know that atheists should be considered citizens, nor should they be considered patriots. This is one nation under God." And then after that, I say, Pat Tillman, American, citizen, atheist, patriot. And that's my dedication in Nothing Sacred, an atheist quote-a-day calendar that can be found on fastpencil.com.
Wonderful.
Great, excellent.
And what inspired you to write those, John?
Yeah. It took me about 3 years to write Nothing Sacred, an atheist quote-a-day calendar. I actually started off writing and gathering research from psychology books, philosophy books, atheist books, and books on religion. And there's actually a sizable amount of my atheist quotes that can't be found on the internet. And I wanted to stress that point that, you know, a lot of them can't be found on the internet, and that's one of the things that makes my book unique. Actually, a quote that I came up with that is in both books is, I guess, what most people would refer to as the battered person syndrome quote. It is a quote that I came up with and put it on my atheist Facebook page on The Thinker on Facebook, and it reads, "You are worthless without him. You need him in your life. You are unlovable and unworthy of love. You are evil, and nothing you can ever do is good enough to be accepted by him. But he will love you anyway, despite your state of unlovability, worthlessness, and evilness. Obey everything he says to do. He knows what is best for you, despite any plans, hopes, or dreams you have of your own that is not part of how he thinks you need to behave and what he thinks you need to do with your life. You need to completely submit to his will. When will Christians realize that their doctrine they adhere to, that their mindset, and everything they think is right about their lives is exactly what clinical psychologists refer to as battered person syndrome?" And that is a quote that I came up with, and it is received. I actually put it into a meme on Facebook, on my atheist Facebook page, The Thinker on Facebook, and it is received about 600-something likes and has gotten about 300-something shares. So I'm really appreciative of everybody who has been willing to share that and to get that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So your second book, Blasphemy, is that all atheist quotes as well, or is it more in-depth writing?
Actually, Blasphemy is pretty much all me. Nothing in Blasphemy is from anybody else. Nothing from famous atheists. It's pretty much just all quotes by me.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of one of the quotes that was pretty popular on my atheist Facebook page. The way that I wrote Blasphemy is I tested out quotes on The Thinker on Facebook, and, you know, whichever quotes my original quotes received, you know, high amount of likes and everything, those quotes ended up in the book. And I wrote several quotes and several essays, and this one is entitled Father Figure. Let's say you had a father who wrote a book and left before you were born, and in this book he instructs you on how he wants you to behave. Also in his book he tells you he wants to have a relationship with you. It mandates you write letters to him daily, which he doesn't reply to. Also, if you read the book, he tells you he wants you to sing songs about how great he is, gives you an unreasonable, unattainable standard he wants you to live up to, says you are unworthy of his love, tries to convince you you are evil just because you were born, had another one of his children tortured to death, and claimed the reason he did it was how bad you were. He also, in the book, tries to convince you that you deserve to be tortured to death in the same way he had his other child killed. In addition to this, the child he had tortured to death, he conceived with a woman who had no say in the matter while she was engaged to another man. At some point, you would probably stop writing letters to this father, conclude he's a lunatic and highly obsessed with himself, and if a case study was done of your father by a licensed psychologist to be conservative about the situation, he would conclude that your father is highly irrational, possibly a sociopath, and the relationships he has with everyone involved are abusive and highly dysfunctional. This one is in my book called Blasphemy, Atheist Quotes and Essays by an Apostate that I wrote.
I like that. That's actually pretty good, man. Really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tried to
Phil, you're awfully quiet. Chime in.
Yeah, I was just thinking as I was listening to these, the approach is very similar to something that I've done sometimes where you're using analogy and metaphor to show them a situation that's absurd and then kind of tying it back to Christianity. So you're not directly saying you're absurd or your idea is absurd, but here's something that's absurd. Oh, and looky, it's kind of just like Christianity, and it sneaks up on them a little bit, and I love that stylistic approach.
Right,
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. One of the reasons that I target Christianity, some people might say, why not target Islam or any other religion, because Islam is more harmful than Christianity. But to me, this is personal. Christianity is the religion that I was taught growing up. And it actually took me about 3 years to actually come to the point where I could say it was okay to be an atheist, to come from a Christian to an atheist. And it was just a long, slow, gradual process that took me just to be comfortable with the fact, that say it was okay to be an atheist. So with me, this is personal. This is something that I believe I was tricked into believing, and since the majority of the Americans in this country believe that Christianity is the one true path, I'm trying to convince people that, as far as the miracles and everything goes in Christianity, that this isn't true. And actually, when it comes to values or morality or anything like that, that secular values and, the use of reason, logic, and critical thinking skills can come into play to come up with better values than what is written in the Bible.
Absolutely, and I know I had it kind of easy coming out of religion because I was 12, 13, so I didn't really lose friends or family or spouse or any of that stuff, and I know it's not been that easy for everybody. But I also spent 5 years pretending to be a Missouri Synod Lutheran and helped save a religious school from going bankrupt. So I know the feeling of having the desire to make up for what you've done. And for me, Christianity is personal. I would perhaps, just for the sake of argument, dispute the idea that Islam is more dangerous than Christianity. Christianity in our modern society has kind of been neutered, whereas Islam hasn't. So as a fundamental philosophy, I don't think it's any less dangerous. It's just currently less dangerous.
Yeah. I've actually, when it comes to, like you're talking about friends and stuff like that, when it comes to people that have been my friends, like in college, some of the people that I was, really, really good friends with, I hang around with all the time. Since I've become a vocal atheist, they've pretty much deleted all contact with me, deleted me from Facebook or even blocked me in some cases, because I've become a vocal atheist and outspoken on this issue and things like that.
I know that hurts.
I guess their imaginary friends are more important than the real ones, So.
Yeah, I had a gentleman who was a good. I still like to think of him as a friend, and he's actually him and his wife are godparents. That's a whole other long story to one of our children. And at some point, he saw what I was putting on Facebook and came on there and attacked me, and that was kind of the end of that. But that was kind of a heartbreaker, and that's really the only one that I've had. So I can appreciate it, but yeah, if you lose dozens of friends, or you kind of lose your entire social network because you've lost your religion or figured out that it's crap, it can be very challenging.
It did kind of hurt my feelings at first, but I've actually begun a process of adding people strictly because they are atheists on Facebook, and just having people that are, like-minded as your friends, really kind of, I guess, makes up for the friends that you lost that, change their mind about being your friend because you're an atheist and stuff like that, or couldn't handle your, being vocal about being an atheist. Did any of you all go to the Reason rally?
I was there.
Yeah, actually, I was there.
I actually went there, and I actually got interviewed by Reason TV, so you can see me if you go on YouTube. Just look up Reason TV, what we saw at the Reason rally. They just asked me why I was there, and I just explained to them I was an atheist, and this is the largest gathering of atheists in the Northern Hemisphere that has ever come about, and I just explained to them, why I was there and everything. But it was really a good experience. I got to meet James Randi and Jessica Alquist, and when Richard Dawkins spoke, I don't think I've ever sensed intelligence as much as I did with that man. There are just certain vibes that some people give out, like I remember when I saw Barack Obama speak, or especially when he went through the crowd and shook hands, the vibe he kind of put out was cool. He just kind of put out this, I'm cool, calm, and collected kind of thing. But the vibe that Richard Dawkins put out was just that, this great intelligence that he put out. So, I was really glad that I was able to make it to the Reason rally and everything.
Yeah, it was a wonderful gathering, and the people were so supportive of each other, even in the cold and the rain, and everybody was so glad to be there. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there's actually a tribute to Christopher Hitchens that I came up with to put in my book, Blasphemy, that I'd like to read for you if you don't care. It is actually it's in Nothing Sacred, an atheist quarter-day calendar on the anniversary of Hitchens' death. But it reads, I don't mourn for the dead, I mourn for the dying. When I know they are suffering is when I do my crying. Hitch, you inspired me to write, reason, analyze, critique, but most of all, you inspired me to think. Tonight I salute you. When I look back, this one's for you, Hitch. Tonight I drink Johnny Walker Black, and so the poem is entitled Tonight I drink Tonight I drink Johnny Walker Black, because that was his favorite drink. So whenever the anniversary of his death comes around, that's kind of something I do. Just it's kind of in memory of him. But he's definitely influenced my life. When it comes to
I got a cute Hitchens story if I've never told it before.
Okay, go ahead.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I was at the Freedom from Religion Foundation annual convention in Madison, Wisconsin, and Hitch was the big speaker, and he was to talk right after lunch on Saturday. And me and a couple friends, we were late coming back from lunch, and Hitchens is standing by the front door, leaning up against the wall, smoking a cigarette. And we were delighted now that we were late, because here he was, and everyone's inside, and we just chum up to him and start talking, and at some point I said, hey, can I get a picture with you? And he takes a big, long drag on a cigarette, blows up the smoke, and he goes, do what the fuck ever you want. But so I'm kind of standing next to him, and I get this cheesy photograph with him that he could really have cared less that I wanted to take a picture with him. But I'm just kind of getting this smile like, oh my God, I'm backstage, should someone take a picture? And it was just a funny moment. And we go into the building, and someone says, well, now that you're selling all these books, are you making a lot of money? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, so what's it like to have a lot of money? And he goes, I've always had a lot of money, and I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. He had a way of putting things, definitely.
Yeah.
Hitchens was an inspiration to a lot of people. I know especially he's one of the big ones. And if I get nervous or anything before a show, I go right to listen to Hitchens, and that's always good for me. So.
Yeah. If there's anybody that I like to pattern my life from, it would probably be him. I've written 2 atheist books, And I'm actually seeking to try to debate pastors in public settings and everything. I actually went to an apologetics conference a couple weekends ago, the one for Southeastern Seminary in Charlotte. And I got to meet Frank Turek, a man who debated Hitchens, and John Lennox, another man who debated Hitchens. And I had these business cards with me that had links to both of my books and my atheist Facebook page, The Thinker, on them. So I basically walked up to them and gave them my card and I basically told them to, critique my book and tell me how wrong I am. So that was, that was pretty interesting. That was a good opportunity to talk to some apologists. I actually am a member of a Facebook group where a lot of apologists belong to, and it just helps me, strengthen my skills as far as, a debater goes and everything, because they're, trained apologists that got trained at a Southeastern Seminary. So, I'm probably one of the most open-minded people you'll ever meet. I'm willing to, go to an apologetics conference and sit through it just to see what I can learn about it,
Yeah, that whole idea of apologetics, my son loved that word because it has apology in it. But I learned about that firsthand when I lived in Arkansas for 2 years. And some of the people down there are nuts. And you have average run-of-the-mill people who, through Bible study and church, week after week after week, have been proactively trained to deflect valid arguments. They've been taught apologetics, and you bring up something in the Bible, and they already know why it's not really as evil as it sounds. It's either misinterpretation, taken out of context, that Latin word really didn't mean that, and it can make it a real challenge to try to talk to somebody, because sometimes their apologetics are very, very crappy, but they think they're good enough, and that's hard to get past.
Yeah.
But also, whenever they say that word was taken the wrong way, or in any way, not the way they intend it, or you intend it, then when you bring something else up, of course, that one's concrete.
Yeah.
Anytime it fits for them, it's concrete. Anytime otherwise, it was a metaphor. That's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually wanted to try to get an apologetics degree, a master's degree in apologetics, just so I could, be trained in it. I guess you would say the best way to defeat Hitler is to study German warfare. So that would probably be the best way to, defeat, the arguments for religion is to, study them. So
there's some great value in that. Yeah.
They actually told me that I couldn't attend Southeastern Seminary unless I was a Christian, but I would love to study apologetics and get a master's in it, just to say that, I have a master's in it and can, if necessary, try to defend it from their side, even though I do have my arguments and I do believe that, there is no personal God. Probably the best argument that I've come up with as far as there not being a personal God, or at least a personal God described in the Bible, is that if there were a conscious, all-powerful entity that wanted a relationship with you, and he was capable of creating the earth in 6 days and parting the Red Sea and doing all these miracles, then he should be able to prove his existence to scientists. And, we have all these amazing levels of technology that have come about in recent years, but for some reason we can't detect a personal God, and that just to me is absurd.
He's really good at hide and seek.
Yeah, and that's also one of the ones that I've encountered quite a bit is whenever that subject comes up, it's always, that would take away the faith aspect. But then whenever you go back and you tell them, faith is actually believing in something without proof, they go, that's not actually what faith means. Faith means this, and they bring up some arbitrary something that word has in another Webster's dictionary that means something different. But yet, it does kind of mean the same thing. They dodge that one really easily.
Yeah, they also use metaphysics to try to say that God exists in metaphysics, but, he doesn't exist in any way that can be tested or anything like that. And metaphysics to me is just pretty much pseudoscience.
It is pseudoscience, yes.
It is pseudoscience, yeah.
I know that another one of their arguments actually falls within the physics realms. Now that multiverse theory is kind of taking hold and they've found one type of boson, people are trying to use that to say God could possibly exist in another universe without looking at the whole rigorous amount of laws of physics which compel it to be not true as well. So there's a lot of apologetics in various forms. I always love it when they say that the translation of the Bible wasn't correct, and then you say, well, if the context isn't correct, then, what you're believing is absolutely not correct.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also the argument that, that they're the inerrant to say, this is the Word of God, it is true, every single word in it is true, but that for some reason, even just in the English language, we have like over 30 translations, and some mean different things. Like in some versions of the Bible, they say that if a young virgin is raped, then she has to marry her rapist. And in some versions it says if she has consensual sex, she has to marry her rapist. And, if personally, if I were an evangelical Christian and a book that I, held to be sacred said that if somebody were raped, she has to marry her rapist, I would go on a, all-out blast hunt to make sure that, that version wasn't printed anywhere, to make sure that, that version didn't get out and my faith wasn't misrepresented. But there's not that effort among the Christian community. They're complacent among all these, translations or these translations, but these versions of the Bible and everything, so they still exist, and there's no, effort to try to silence, the versions that say that, if a woman is raped, she has to marry a rapist. Anybody can see that. Probably a very immoral thing.
That is actually the story that shook my faith. That is the one story that actually made me question the entirety of the Bible. And I could never resolve my loathing for that story. And that's what actually I built upon to leave religion, because that story was just atrocious to me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Donna, it's really been a pleasure. I have enjoyed talking to you, and your interview went really well, I will say. Rachel, did you have anything else to add?
No. I think we did a good job and had a good time, and thank you so much, John, for coming on with us. It's been a pleasure having you.
And just remember that my two books, Blasphemy and Nothing Sacred, is located on fastpencil.com, and that's where you can search to get my two books. And I appreciate very much the time that I was able to spend on here.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
He's pretty good. I liked him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did really well. And we have a caller. I'm not sure that do y'all want to take a caller that's a bit on hold for a while?
Do it.
Before we go into the next interview?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, and welcome to the show.
Hello?
All right. May not be one of the ones we want to take. We do have, those happen. Michael's on the line with us, and Michael.
Yes.
You there?
Yes.
Hello? Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Oh, hi. Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on.
Glad to have you, Michael. Tell us what your relationship is and what groups you're in charge of and what you're doing.
I'm Michael Gobot. I'm the president and founder of the new Secular Legal Society at the William S. Boyd School of Law at UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I just founded that group a couple months ago. I'm a second-year law student there, and a couple years ago I refounded a Secular Student Alliance affiliate at UNLV as an undergrad while I was there. that group grew and did well. We won the Best Affiliate of the Year this summer, had 17 of our members busted out to Columbus, Ohio to get that award, and I decided I wasn't really done doing SSA stuff, wanted to keep going, and I was in law school, so I started a new group, and there's about, I think, 4 other secular legal societies at other law schools in the country, so it's kind of a new branch of the SSA, or it's becoming a new branch. They've already got some great resources up for us on their website, and I'm hoping that it really takes off and other law students form secular legal societies. I think it's a really good thing for secular law students to participate in. The SSA is great for us.
Now, you just passed over, but I want to make a point. You had 17 students that hopped in a bus and drove from Las Vegas to the middle of Ohio.
Well, technically, the three of us were speakers at the SSA conference, including myself and 2 others who were 2 of the people who helped me really get the group started again a couple years ago. We flew, but the other 14, I guess, they rented 2 technically big vans. They were going to get a big bus and paint on it, but that turned out to be more difficult to rent than we thought or to buy. So we got 2 big vans and busted out, yeah.
That is amazing. And I don't know if you know that, of course, you guys earned the award, absolutely, but you took it away from the previous title holder, which is the Illini Secular Student Alliance, which is my home group. I'm not really a student, but I help them from time to time. So if we were going to lose that title to anybody, you were the one group that earned it.
Well, I appreciate that. Myself and some others who really wanted the group to work really put a lot of work into it to make it work, because it was founded about, let's say, I guess 3.5 years ago originally at UNLV, not by myself, but, it was founded, and after about a year, it kind of lost momentum, and over the summer, it's a common story for many SSA chapters, many college and high school groups in general lose momentum over the summer. There's a lot of transition, students graduate, they leave, and it just didn't really pick up again in the fall. And then in that spring, I decided to really try to get it going again, and I became president, took over, and there were a couple other people who really wanted to see it succeed, and, I was really happy that there was plenty of interest at UNLV. It just grew exponentially. We had 55, 60 people at our very first meeting after advertising a lot, and have really maintained a really high membership rate since then. Again, I'm not really active in the undergrad group anymore because I'm in the law school, which is on the UNLV campus as well, and my new group works with the undergrad group sometimes, and we promote each other's events and things like that. But they are doing really well still without me. I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. Do you know some of the events that they did?
Well, they won. So last year was the year that we were considered the affiliate of the year, right? The 2011-2012 school year. So I was still very active that year. I was still president that fall. That was the end of my term. And so I'm really familiar with last year. Things that we did was bring in lots of speakers. We brought in speakers like Greta Christina, Mr. Deity, Brian Dalton, Ted Cox, who did the Welcome to Straight Camp, or the Straight Camp, undercover investigation. Of course, Dr. Darrell Ray, who wrote the God Virus and his new book about sex and religion. He's one of our favorite speakers. We've had him 3 times now, I think, to UNLV. The undergrad group just last week had comedian Keith Jensen, who does some atheist comedy, come in. Basically, when I refounded the group, one of the things that I thought would be good was just being extremely active with public events, and I kind of thought we should do one a month, and that turned out to be kind of crazy, and not many people think that's doable, but that's just kind of what I thought we should do, and it stuck, and we do about one public event a month like that.
That's fantastic. Now, how many members do you have, and how do you get them?
Are you asking about the undergrad SSA group or my new secular legal society group?
Well, honestly, I'd love to hear both answers. with the hope that there's someone somewhere who's on campus that doesn't have a group, whether they're undergraduate, graduate school, law school, whatever, and they're like, well, I don't even know how to start. It just seems like too much. So how did you do it? What can they do to get up and get moving?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question and something that I really hope to be able to help students with. Well, first of all, it really just takes one person at a school. You might think you're alone, but all it takes is one person who really wants to do it. I was lucky when I was restarting the SSA group as an undergrad. I was able to get in touch with the people who were past officers from the year before, who everyone had kind of lost touch, kind of was dormant for the fall semester. But I was able to, we got in touch again, and I had people helping me as president to really get the group going again. But in my law school, it wasn't the same story. It was really just, I did feel pretty alone. I felt like I may be really hurting my future legal career. Las Vegas, and it's a small community. There's only one law school in Nevada, and I didn't know if starting a secular group in law school would really harm me, if I'd be somewhat ostracized. But I was wrong. Wherever you are almost, there are other people who are like-minded, and all you need to do is, the SSA website, secularstudents.org, has a lot of great resources. That's the first place I would go. And they really do, they help you a lot. I don't even know if it's worth me going into details, but I recommend going to secularstudents.org, get a group starting packet. It explains everything from scheduling your first meeting to how to flyer. They'll even send you flyers to post up with your group information. They're really, really just great, and it's an amazing organization. They've done so much for me over the years. Yeah, it's great.
How do you fund getting speakers and stuff if you do an event every month?
Yeah, okay, well, a couple ways. The SSA, the National SSA, they offer funding for student groups to provide travel for their speakers. I believe it's $400 a semester around there for speakers' travel. And they have something called the Speakers Bureau, which is just a list of speakers. Other organizations have speakers bureaus, which is basically a list of speakers who are willing to go to SSA affiliate groups and speak for free or very low honorarium costs. So it's actually sometimes not that expensive to get speakers in. The SSA helps with travel, like I said, and usually the speakers don't require much more. Sometimes they would stay on my, on my couch bed for, they don't mind. Some of them, it's, you give them maybe a meal, but other than that, your schools can also provide funding. Our school does provide some student funding. They'll reimburse you for some expenses. There's other groups who provide funding. I can't think off the top of my head, but I know with my law school group, the American Bar Association, they help provide funding for student group events in law schools, and the same thing applies. There are some organizations that will help undergrad student groups. I'm sure secular organizations, of course, primarily would be the ones to look at. And also, we were really heavy into fundraising. We reached out to the other local secular groups in Las Vegas. There's the Las Vegas Atheist Group. There's the local Humanist Group, the Humanist Association of Las Vegas and Southern Nevada. And we reached out to them, and some of them made donations, to a $1,000 donation. That can be enough money for a whole year, and that happened. So stuff like that, fundraising, reaching out.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job with it.
Michael, I think two of those things are the most important that I heard, and they were fantastic. One is reaching out to the community groups, and I recommend any college group that happens to be listening, find your local group, see if there's something you can do together. You may find someone who's a retired attorney or business leader, and they always wanted a group like that when they were in college, and they give you $1,000, just like you said. Amazing things can happen, or maybe they just help out And if you have an off year, they can keep your files or your records or your banner. And when new students start it up, they've already got something to start with. And the Speakers Bureau is amazing. Both the CFI and the SSA do that. And I know the SSA one really well because I'm on that Speakers Bureau. And if you're anywhere in the Midwest, you can have me come stop by, but contact SSA and get one of their speakers. They're almost always free or very low cost, and they do a great job.
Yes, that's true. You can. I mean, we've flown people in from around the country too. It is a little bit easier when they're local, especially if they can drive in from LA or something. But you know, my Secular Legal Society, we had our first big public speaker event with about 50 people who showed up at the law school to see Andrew Seidel, the attorney for the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And he gave a presentation about how separation of church and state benefits everyone, theists, non-theists, religious, non-religious alike, which was a great first event for us because a lot of law students at UNLV were skeptical of my group and were somewhat, I want to say hostile, but not keen on the formation necessarily. And this was a great first event to really get some of those religious students in and see why the group does benefit them as well, why separation of church and state is good for everybody. And, yeah, the SSA helped us a lot, paid for mostly his travel. And, again, fundraising. My undergrad group, something that we actually started was a benefit show, which started with Penn Jillette from Penn & Teller, offering to do something to benefit our group because he liked the idea of having a secular student group at UNLV. And he did a free show with his band, the No God Band, which performs at the Amazing Meeting usually every year, or has for a couple years now. And we raised a lot of money at that show by just charging at the door, and he played for free. So
how cool is that?
Yeah, we've done benefit shows ever since then, and that has been, raised. We're talking, a couple $1,000s at these shows that the community comes out to and sees bands who play for free, and it's great. That's just another idea for fundraising that I really like to promote because I was in a band, and my band opened for him that year, and it was a great experience, obviously, for everyone, and raised a lot of money, and I think other student groups could have a lot of success with that, so.
Great.
Another idea. Wonderful. Yeah, and you asked me, I think, how many members we have. I don't know if I answered. The undergrad group, I know they've got, like I said, I haven't been as active in the undergrad group since I'm busy with my law school group now and doing that, but they've got probably around 100 members. I'm thinking from at least when I left or last I heard, but they're pretty large. They have weekly meetings that have huge turnouts, and my Secular Legal Society, like I said, when I started, it was really just me, but within a few weeks of starting and just posting up flyers, advertising on Facebook, and having my first, meeting, we had almost 50 members in a couple weeks who paid dues and wanted to be a part of it and support the group. So, like I said, I just want, if there's anything to take away for other students who feel alone and they might be the only one at school, or they might be ostracized or looked down upon for forming a secular student alliance, I just hope they know that they'd be surprised of the students that come out of the woodwork and turn out to be huge allies to them and really supportive of their cause. So I would recommend anyone take a chance and just start it and advertise and be unashamed, Don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. You'd be surprised how many people will support you.
Absolutely. I tell students all the time, or even people with community groups, just build it and they will come. And, if it ends up just being 3 or 4 people and you're meeting at the pub once a month, then do that. If all the group wants, then do that. And I've known groups that have done that for a year or two, and then all of a sudden they have 10 or 12 people, and some people start wanting to do blood drives, community events. If you're with a school, you can get funding and get speakers, and maybe, just maybe, you start this little group, and 10 years from now you look back, and it's got a couple hundred members. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I would mirror that exactly. That's exactly right. You never know. Things start with small, humble beginnings and can grow quite large. I mean, we went from being, my undergrad group, from having a semester of nothing where the whole group was disbanded that summer and that fall where everyone just kind of fell out, and then, becoming me starting the group up, and we won the Affiliate of the Year award a year and a half later, and had 100 members or so, and 17 who wanted to go all the way to Ohio from Nevada to just to be there. That was before we knew we won the award. Obviously, we already had everything set up for the buses, so they wanted to be there. It had nothing to do with winning the award. We didn't know we were going to, so it just goes to show, small beginnings can grow pretty fast.
Yeah, wow, that's astounding.
Yeah, and if anyone, before I forget, if anyone's interested in learning more about my secular legal society, they can like our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/SLS Boyd Law, BOYD Boyd Law, or they can email slsboydlaw@gmail.com in case anyone wants any more information about my secular legal society group. And I'm guessing you might be interested in eventually having the undergrad, a representative from the undergrad group possibly, who's active now and can tell you more about the current goings-on of the undergrad group. And I'll definitely reach out to their current leadership and let them know about your show. But
one of the things we're trying to do with the show, of course, is promote people from all the different groups. And, we don't want to pick sides. We want to promote everybody and lift all boats kind of philosophy. And a huge part of that is the students, the student movement, graduate, undergraduate, community college, high school. I would love to have at least one person every week on to talk about their group. So when someone finds this podcast, no matter what week it is, they hear that it can be done and it's not that bad. And it can be a lot of fun, and you get to meet people, and who knows? I mean, we're changing the world from the grassroots, and I think it's critical. And the work that you have done, and I know you've had lots and lots of help out there in Las Vegas. All of the students have done amazing work out there. They earned their prize as best student group of the year, and congratulations, and thank you for doing what you're doing and keeping up the great work.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and you're absolutely right that it's not just me. I may have started things and gotten the ball rolling, and yes, of course, very, very active and everything, but there certainly have been students at the undergrad level when I was with the undergrad group, and now in law school, law students who have shown themselves to be powerful allies and very supportive of the group, and other people in the community as well, in fact, have been very supportive. So, yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks again for having me on. I don't know if you have any other questions, but I really have enjoyed it.
It's been great.
Thank you for coming on, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Good luck on those tests.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, before we bring the next guest on, I know that he's waiting. Tombstone, the Dead Man, is waiting on the line, and I'm going to play his song, and then we're going to bring him on to talk about his new album, Death Lives. So here we go, guys.
Did you really think that I wasn't going to address this album? Don't be ridiculous. Like most of you, I was indoctrinated with religion. At a time when I was much too young to make decisions. Dragged by the hand without permission, lacked the cognitive ability to see the contradictions in the superstitions. I know my mother really thought that she was doing right, cause after all, this wasn't a war she was taught to fight. Buried under layers of prayers, emotional attachments, and every other program and attached with a sense of common unity involvement. No actual incentive to question all of the sermons from the pulpit. This is how they introduced the idea, firmly rooted in the fear. No question validity, just adhere. It's not innocent, it sets a bad precedent. Internalized credulity for things that lack evidence. Some people keep this way of thinking for their whole lives. The need for critical thinking is never realized. I don't want to hear about the books that you have read. Explain to me the way you see the thoughts inside your head. That filtered through the garbage you regurgitate instead. Your thoughts are just a program with which you are in bed. There's a logic of learning science from shamans. Excuse the laughter if you please, I'm trying to keep it all in. But this is how you look when you go and consult your preachers to gain an understanding of evolutionary features. In fact, I'm finding it despicable how you characterize scientific principles. Dismiss the indispensable. So don't believe these guys that say it's science they despise when they standing in the line for the iPhone 5. You benefiting from the method, then you go and step on it. The fame and of everything that your life has been affected with. A lifespan enhancement comes directly from advancement by people in lab coats, not biblical and giants. Take a whiff of these comedians, cause something smells funky. If we came from monkeys, then why there's still monkeys? See, that's the type of dumb shit that needs to be responded to. Your obvious accomplishment was dropping out of high school. I don't wanna hear about the books that you have read. Explain to me the way you see the thoughts inside your head. Not filtered through the garbage you regurgitate instead. Your thoughts are just a program with which you are in bed. All I really wanna do is show you there is freedom. Eliminate those primitive myths, you don't need them. The clergy only trolling for power, so don't feed them. And since they can't prove it, remove it and don't believe them. You're not mentally fit to be talking shit to me. You believe those primitive books that reflect the history in its purest form, like it really has no discrepancy. Really want to go to war and you're choosing this as your weaponry? Now, does that even sound at all? And is this even logic when you're claiming that a book of faith can prove your stupid argument? Way too much to bother with, not much fat to stake it on. It's just like thinking if you dance, you can really make it storm. Oh yeah, but I forgot, your book is the truthful one, and all those other ancient myths are something that is really dumb. It couldn't possibly be that you all have been deceived. It couldn't possibly be that you got a false belief. That's why I question your sermon should be sequestered. Now leave from off my porch, you're starting to really pester. You're one of many thousands that's claiming a revelation, too wrapped up in all your ego to see your indoctrination. I don't want to hear about the books that you have read. Explain to me the way you see the thoughts inside your head. Not filtered through the garbage you regurgitate instead. Your thoughts are just a program with which you are in bed. All I really want to do is show you there is freedom. Eliminate those primitive myths, you don't need them. The clergy only trolling for power, so don't feed them. And since they can't prove it, remove it and don't believe them.
Well, welcome to the show, Tombstone.
Thank you very much, guys.
We're so glad to have you back. I'm
glad to be back. Thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Because I noticed this album is a little bit darker than the other one was.
Yeah. My reason for this album is it's a myriad of reasons that I actually, with things that inspired me to actually make the album. One, from just like a inspiration perspective, you know, after I finished Rise of the Infidel, I still was in the mood to write. And I didn't want to wait until next year or something to release something. I had these songs and these ideas in my mind, so I wanted to do that. And I always wanted to release an album on Halloween. So I always thought that, you know, with my particular stage name and Halloween, that's just a good fit. That's one of the reasons. The other reason was that, you know, I do hip-hop, and I'm unapologetic about what I do. And in hip-hop, sometimes you have to be a little bit more aggressive, and there are, I wouldn't give these people's names out because I don't want to give them any kind of notoriety or anything, but there are people that have attempted to write songs and mention my name, mention other names of certain members in GU. So that first song in particular, G Universe, is basically an aggressive strike at them to let them know that don't think that just because, you know, the particular artists in GU rap about certain themes that we can't get down lyrically, because that's just not the case. And, you know, the other reason is that my style previously in the past has always had a darker, more edgier. And if you even compare my music to, like, Creighton Square's music, who was also a member of GU, you'll see that our music is a bit different. Like, we have similar themes, but our approach is a little different. I'm just a little bit more aggressive. It's just that on Rise of the Infidel, I chose to take a different tack with that. I still utilized the aggression, but I pointed it as I used it at its focus like a laser, and that one direction right there. With this one, I wanted to do some storytelling. It's like the song Dark Matter is basically the origin story of two characters in the comic book that we're developing. I wanted to do more of that because part of hip-hop is storytelling, and I think that's kind of a lost art nowadays, so I wanted to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, and actually, I've listened to your album a few times since I got it, and I noticed that there is a lot of content to it, and if you listen to the lyrics, when you talk about the Ballad of the Non-Believer there, and you talk about your mama and her giving you the indoctrination, things like that, all of your songs actually have a very powerful content behind them.
Thank you. I do the best that I can. I feel like it's my responsibility to do it.
Yeah, and I think you took a little bit of a punches at religion, but as well as other things. And in fact, in one of your songs, you actually call out other rappers who are hiding behind dogma, pretending that they believe, and saying, that you know that they really don't believe what they're saying.
They really don't believe it. I mean, it's kind of, like I told you guys the last time I was on, I don't feel as though you're a complete artist if you're hiding one aspect of you away from your art strictly because you're afraid of alienating certain people. I mean, when I start writing and get into those creative modes, my mind isn't on necessarily what the audience wants. It's what I'm feeling at the time. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of the essence of what art is. When a painter sits down to paint a picture, I really don't think that a true artist is sitting there wondering, the people really like this. No, they're painting with vision that they see inside their mind's eye, and that's kind of what I do when I write.
Yeah, and it's very powerful. I really enjoyed it. It was a shorter album than your last one, and I was wondering, does this mean that you're working on more music?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, it does. I wanted to throw this out there. I mean, actually, I refer to it as an album, but in actuality, it's like an EP. You know what I mean? It's extended plays. 7 songs on there. I feel 7 strong songs. And, I do have another project. There's the GU project where all the artists in GU will be on one album, and that's coming up. Every single artist that's in GU will be on one single album, and I'm really excited about that. We're working really hard on getting that out and really putting together some quality content for the listeners to listen to. And then after that, my next solo album after that will be entitled Old Man Landing, and I've already had a few songs written and recorded for that. So I'm trying to stack up my catalog, but I don't want to have a whole bunch of songs that mean nothing, that have no meaning. You know what I mean? I want to, when the day comes when I stop doing this for whatever reason, I want to be able to look back at the catalog of songs I have and feel proud about that.
Yeah. Okay, I had actually made the comment.
Drop a few names of who's going to be on that album. That's going to have everybody.
The GU album, Great and Square, of course, will be on there. Lady Assassin, who appears as a feature on the Def Lives album, the song Dark Matter. Another guy, Arguma. Really, really like Arguma. I like Lady Assassin too, but this is my first time really working with Arguma, and he really impressed me with his verse. We'll have Johnny Hoax on there. We'll have Sickness on there. Shelly Segal will be on there. For those of you who know who she is. It's going to be. It's going to be a really serious album, and I think this is going to be as creative as we can possibly make it. As creative as we can put all these minds coming together, and definitely trying to put together some serious content, quality content for our supporters who, by and large, has been incredible. The response GU gets is just incredible, and any of our supporters are listening. I just want to thank you guys for that, for your support, because sometimes I get messages and stuff from our supporters, and it really reminds me of the reason why I do what I do.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan. I think I've told you that a million times now, but so yeah, I'm supporting you 150%, and I really
and we appreciate it, which is why we thanked you on. That's why I thanked you on the album. I thanked the podcast on the album because you guys are really supportive.
Yeah, I saw that, and you really made my day. And, of course, I had to tell everyone about that because that's so awesome to me. And I can't wait for your next album because I haven't stopped listening to that song since I got that out, this new LP, Ballad of Non-Believer, because the message behind it just really connected with me. And if that's what you're doing with other fans, I'm sure that they're enjoying it as well. And real quick, I wanted to promote where they can find that, get people to your site.
Sure. If you go to bandcamp.com and just search Tombstone the Dead Man, I do hip-hop, so it's not the as in T-H-E, it's the as in D-A, Dead Man. You'll find the Death Bits album and the Rise of the Infidel album for those of you who haven't picked that up yet.
And
all right.
How have things been going in the background as far as life? Are you getting more recognition now? Are you getting, more well known?
Well, it's kind of funny for an independent artist, which is the reason why I really appreciate your show and other shows like this. We don't usually get the press. Ours is more of a grind, a grassroots grind. We get the network and things like that. So just from the last time we spoke, and I have definitely seen a jump in my supporter base, and from a lot of different places too, from as far as South Africa. You know what I mean? So I mean, yeah, same thing. So if someone would have told me just 2-3 years ago that I would have had that kind of a response from people, I wouldn't have believed them. So like I said, it's incredible. Matter of fact, our Graydon, he just performed at the Florida Secular Rally this weekend, and he told me when he was down there, he saw people down there with T-shirts and sweaters and stuff. I said, wow, like seriously. So it's I'm overwhelmed at times at the effect. You know what I mean? That's
well, we are going to put in a request right now for the release date week that we get an interview with all of you.
Oh,
and we'll promote the album that day.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure I can make that happen.
We want to promote it as well. So.
Yeah, I'm sure I can make that happen. If anybody else wants to know who are some of the other artists on GU, they can go to our Facebook page called Grand Unified Music. Just put that in the search bar, and our page should pop up, and you'll see we have some really diverse artists. I was listening to one the other day, one of the projects the other day from the one rapper, C. Gatz, and he impresses me every time I hear him spit anything. He impresses me, and I know at some point people are going to gravitate towards him at some point when they hear him and Lady Assassin and Ogma. Definitely. Like I said, we have a few other guys, Johnny Hoax, Sickness, Uncle Bungus, but I'm telling you, I think we have an artist for nearly everybody. Their approach pretty much, we definitely did.
And do you have any planned events where you're going? Are you going to, the American Atheist Convention, anything like that coming up?
Well, I haven't been invited to that yet, but in March I have an event in Texas. I don't have unfortunately, that paperwork in front of me right now, but I'll be sure to let you guys know, give you further information about it. But I'm performing at this event in Texas, so that's the only one that I have that's coming up, and that's not even that soon. That's off in the distance sometime.
Yeah, I thought the American Atheist Convention was in March in Texas.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it's the same day as that or weekend as that. I know it's at some club, but I cannot remember the name of the club to save my life right now. And you guys have to forgive me for that because I've been like nose deep in schoolwork all day, so.
Yeah, and
trying to
then
reach that deadline.
Rachel brings you on to fix your brain after that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Nah, it's always a pleasure to be on you guys' show. Always.
Do you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, one of the songs on the EP is called 1%. And the reason I did that particular song is because, I do have strong political opinions, but I ordinarily don't delve into that. But I just felt that song pretty much for me sums up how I feel about the political environment that we have now, and the fact that these corporations and these billionaires can spend all of this money on campaign ads and stuff like that to influence elections and things like that. And I just think that it sucks. It's poisoned the water. Now, instead of people going out and having their own opinions based off of what they've researched, they're just using talking points from each of the parties, either Republican talking points or Democratic talking points. And it seems like sometimes they're digging from different wells to get their facts, saying things that are mutually exclusive to one another. And it's ridiculous now. So I definitely wanted to do a song voicing my opinion on that. And people who feel like they don't need to vote, like that, I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Well, you don't. When you don't vote, when you don't try to participate, they make legislation that can hurt you and your interests. Yeah. So vote for somebody. Get out there and exercise your right to vote.
That's a powerful message, right. And I did notice that in one of your songs. So what do you think? Do you think that artists should speak out more right now and say, make up your own mind, have your own decisions?
Yeah, I would like to see that more, because the thing about the industry, and it's been like this for years, but I think at some point some things have to change where it become purely an industry. They're not people. A lot of people aren't doing thought-provoking music, at least not in the mainstream, and they don't care because all they look at is the numbers and the statistics. And if I read about this because this is the new thing, then it's possible that I'll sell this amount of copies. And I think they sell themselves cheap like that. I think you poison your legacy when you do that, because most of the artists that I remember, long after they stopped doing music, I remember them because they made music that made me sing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of artists these days don't really want to get engaged in that. They much rather not take any position at all. And hey, I can understand that. You feel a certain kind of way about it, but at the very least, you could tell people, look, go out there and participate in the system. As broken as it is, it doesn't help you not to do anything. Because a lot of people that I ask, when they tell me, you shouldn't vote, you shouldn't do this, I ask them, okay, so what should we do? They have no plan, no actions, nothing. So,
Yeah. And you look at the last time that music got very political during the 60s when there was Creedence Clearwater Revival and all of that going on.
Oh, yeah.
And look at the motivation and the difference that they made in the minds of the people just by speaking out. So I think you guys have an ability to have a very positive voice and influence on the future. So.
And I think it's our responsibility, too. I think, because, let's face it, if I was to ask you right now, Rachel, what was the music that reminds you the most of your childhood, you could rattle off a couple of songs, because music becomes the soundtrack of your life. And I think it's important for us to actually say something in the music. Not all the time. You can be creative. There's a place for partying. There's a place for that. But I think it should be more balanced, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's very true. And, messages get through. And I remember whenever I was growing up, it was older music to me then, but like Blondie and Pat Benatar with their powerful messages about women being strong and independent. Those resonate with me still today. So
exactly, and it meant something to you. And when you hear it, it instantly takes you back to your youth. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think a lot of artists are selling themselves short with doing what I call mech records. You know, it's like McDonald's food. You go up to the driveway, you get it, you eat it real fast, you're hungry again 2 hours later or whatever. That's what a lot of the music sounds to me to be. And I think they're selling the legacy really short, because I won't remember them, and I guarantee a lot of these kids aren't going to remember them either. They're just going to be a flash in the pan, hot for 6 months, and no one thinks about them after that.
That's very true. And I actually made the comment that your music had a lot of content to it, unlike some music that's just about money, drugs, and hoes. And that was the comment I actually made.
And I cannot believe you said that, but
you know I would say it. Come on.
Yeah, and we talked about this too, Stone, the last time. You know, I'm more of a rock guy, and you know that. Mm-hmm. And I understand you were, you know, at one time, or actually you grew up that way.
I still listen to it.
You know, and Tool and A Perfect Circle are two of my favorites.
I love A Perfect Circle.
Having the same lead singer with both, you know, but he has, like you said, powerful messages in every song. There are a lot of them are political, religious, but he has those messages in every song. But they are also creative, and that's what draws me to it. Is that diversity, that strong music content, and also extreme skill. I love skillful music. I prefer that more than the two-chord, bands that are out there that, you know, most of us have just got sick of. I can't stand that lack of talent. It's just like, what was it? I'm sorry, hose music, whatever. It's
just hoes and money.
That is the flip side. You do have that. And for some reason, that seems to make it at times, but it always falls on its face, and you know that. And the skillful music stays throughout the time. You look at the extremely skillful rock bands, Led Zeppelin, the Doors, all of your great musical bands, they had content and skill.
Exactly.
And I think you have that. And that's what I do like about your music is that you bring that into it, and you're looking at it from that angle versus what money, hoes, and whatever. I don't know.
Money, drugs,
That's
and
not
hoes.
really something. And I mean, and the thing with that is, it seems awful boring to me, and it's maybe because I'm getting older, but that seems boring. I mean, with my music, I can visit the stars. So why would I want to stay on Earth with that? I just want to. I don't feel the need. I think that's me putting myself in a box that's really, 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 really like shallow. It's not no veils there. I don't want to look back on my catalog years later and see that I have a bunch of go nowhere, say nothing music. Not interested in that at all.
Right. And I hate to say this, Phil, you're being awfully quiet.
I am just enjoying the beautiful conversation. I wasn't on last time, Tombstone, when you were on, and I'm actually kind of opposite of Jimmy. I go more into like clubby, techno-y kind of music. But if I want some smooth, thoughtful rap, you're right on top of the list.
Oh man, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
It's great stuff, and I am delightfully surprised, and maybe I shouldn't be surprised, I guess, but I'm delighted at how clever and thoughtful your lyrics are, and just like Graydon, I've met him a couple times, and I haven't had the luxury of meeting you, but you guys really think through this stuff, and there is a definite possibility that someone's going to hear this music, and it's going to open their mind, and it might set them on a path that's going to change their life, and I'm envious. I wish I could be involved in something like that.
Thanks, man. I certainly hope that the music's having that effect. I certainly do. And like I said, a lot of the messages and notes and stuff that I get from people, sometimes I don't even know how to respond to it. But, I was explaining to another artist one time before. I was like, I think what it is, when you're part of a particular group that is maligned, that is lied about, that is misrepresented, and somebody speaks out in their defense and argues for them and says unapologetically, I am a part of that, I think the same way they do, and this is why, and does it creatively with music or whatever else, I think people from that particular group will tend to gravitate towards them because they feel like, yeah, this guy or this lady, she's speaking for me. This is exactly how I feel. I can't say it that same way as they said it, but yeah, what he said. And I think that has a lot to do with the appeal, but it's definitely been overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the great thing is that, I've listened to rap most of my life, and I can pick out good rap by the message that it brings. And so instantly, once I heard you on the stage at the Reason Rally, I was all over it because the message right there was about religion being poison, just like this one is talking about indoctrination. And I think that those are powerful messages. And there are various ways to reach people, and music seems to, gap a lot of places that other things can't get. When you can't talk to somebody, sometimes you can reach them with music.
Right.
So
exactly. And then not be like in a lot of songs, they may not go fully into the detailed arguments for or against something, but I think the overall subject matter and music has a way of touching emotions. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that has a lot to do with why some people who may not be open to have that discussion with you, but would hear a song and it might make them fit because they're not feeling like the person's right in their face. They're listening off of the distance, not engaged in a conversation where they feel like they have to defend something, listening to the song. And a lot of things that I've heard from Graydon rap about or Sickness or Johnny Hope rap about, it's stuff that I'm quite sure they have thought sometimes. They have actually had those thoughts, but they suppress them out of fear because, they believe that the cosmos is controlled by this intergalactic entity who convicts of thought crimes. So if you even think, I should be thinking that, when the preacher gets up on the pulpit and says something that's completely asinine, something that from your own reference, life experience could possibly be true, the fear kicks in. I can't think that. I shouldn't have those thoughts. So I think at the very least, that's what happens when people hear music that talks about that sort of thing. Those thoughts that they've had, you hear it verbalized in the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's critical, a point that you just made, that people don't generally get into religion through a logical thought process. They get there through emotional reasons, and sometimes as a community, we spend far too much time trying to be logical, and maybe sometimes we just got to hit them in the gut with emotion.
Absolutely.
And they can go, that just doesn't feel right.
Right. And I think we need to go there more often because, like in the song, Other Than I Believe, I start off about how I was created as a child. And think about that. Instead of, like I said, my mother didn't get harm with what she was doing. This is what she was taught. But when you grab a child at a very young age, they don't have the cognitive ability to truly, contest, or the life experience to contest some of the things that's being said to them. And the person one of the people that's the most important in their lives, their mother or their father or their grandparents, aunts, uncles, are telling them this, and surely these people don't mean me any harm. Why would they lie to me? But it may not even be a case of them lying. They could just be misinformed, and they pass on that misinformation to you. And as a child, you really don't have the tools to critique it. You know what I mean? And I think just at a base level right there, if we start hitting them with that more, I think you can reach some sort of an emotional connection with them. Like, you haven't even given this child a chance to think for themselves yet. You're already putting ideas in their head. Yes, certain things you probably do need to put into their head to protect them. But some of that other stuff, I mean, come on. You really, and it makes it difficult when they get older, you know, and then when they run across somebody like me, I have a differing opinion, and they feel like they got to defend this because in their mind, they're not just defending religion. They're defending Mommy, Grandma, Uncle Charlie, Aunt Esther, all the people that taught them that stuff as they was growing up. They defended Grandma's apple pie they used to smell when she was in the kitchen singing gospel songs. This is how they feel. They're emotionally attached to this. And they made them use different tactics sometimes.
That's why that system works so well.
Yeah. I've got to ask you, Tim, have you done any, or have you tried to do any covers of the rock songs that you were?
Not as yet. However, when I was a little younger, I have sampled, made the attempt to sample certain rock riffs, because I wasn't really that good of a sampling producer. It didn't come out quite the way I wanted, but I have been looking for producers that can give me a track or some tracks that have more rock, tinge to it, because I like that, and I want to kind of blend the hip hop with the rock, because like I said, I listen probably to about as much rock as I do hip hop, so I want to kind of blend it together a little bit.
Well, I would
see some of that. I would expect to see some of that in the future.
I would want to hear a hip hop version of Eulogy. That would be my request. Would that not be great? I mean, a hip hop version of Eulogy would just be unbelievable. Wow. My request. I'm sorry. I threw it out there for you. Take it.
Wow. You got the wheel turning with that.
I want to hear you tell Christ to get the fuck off the cross because we need to nail the next fool's martyr.
Those are great lyrics. Those are great lyrics.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
You definitely got the wheels turning.
I think.
I think it would be really good. I do. I think it would be really good. So, there we go. There's my contribution to the next one.
Okay. Well, like I said, you got my wheels turning on it, so don't be surprised.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Just a few props thrown in there. That's good. We're good.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely.
Okay, guys. Well, we're almost out of time. Thank you so much, Tombstone, for coming back on, and look forward to your next album. And please feel free to contact me and let me know, because I'll be looking forward to that. So.
All right. I appreciate you guys having me back on, supporting what I'm doing. And goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for coming on. All right. Bye.
Take it easy.
Wow, that was 2 hours already?
Yes, it was.
It seemed like it.
Right.
No, it didn't. That was a really good show, guys. I enjoyed this one.
I don't know if you guys do it, but I always listen to the show a second time just to see what we did right and what we did wrong. And I'm going to enjoy listening to this show again. I mean, I like the others too, but this one was amazing. Well, we got a standard to match now.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. I think that it was an amazing show, and overall, the guests did a wonderful job. Everybody did a wonderful job.
I was just going to throw in real quick, because we're almost out of time. All the listeners, please like us on Facebook, find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and hook up with us and tell us what you want us to do, what do you want us to talk about. We can use all the support and ideas we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a website that should be up here within the next week or so, hopefully by Skepticon. And we do now have a store at Cafe Press called The Pink Atheist, where you can buy different shirts or mugs or anything with the Pink Atheist logo on it. And I actually have a few slogans that are up there, and I'm going to expand on that. So feel free to look us up at Cafe Press as well.
Yay.
Yay. All right, guys.
All right. Thank everybody for joining us on the show. John, Michael, David, and Tombstone, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. It was a pleasure having every one of you on the show. And thanks to my co-hosts. This has been a wonderful show. And we will see you all back here next week, and we'll do it again. So until then, everybody, have a wonderful week.
All right.